My name is Jason Gearing with By the Creek Wushu. This is Kenneth Grant. He practices and I believe instructs
Yes, sir.
here with AJF. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you know, my name is Kenneth Grant. I have been doing martial arts for about 7 years now. I recently got started with it because I've also wanted to start out with fighting, going into maybe a little bit of mixed martial arts. So when my mother saw me doing this, she was like, that was really good. And then she said that most of the people that kept going really stopped because of injury. But I kept going even though I had injury with my shoulder in judo and mostly everywhere. So.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's one of those sports where it kind of happens to you. Injury, the risk of kind of injury everywhere. Because like John was, saying, a lot of energy and a lot of power gets going in you. Tell us a little bit about Taekwondo as a style.
Taekwondo as a style is mostly trying to just get out of a situation without having to try to hurt an opponent. As we demonstrated, we tried to, with guns and knives pretty much, we tried to disarm the person just enough time to run. And with either if there's a bar fight or anything, it gives us time to even use hand techniques to try to get out of there and make sure they don't get too injured.
Gotcha. And from what I understand, Taekwondo, there are different systems where like some of them emphasize more on like hand techniques and some of systems emphasize more on foot, kicks and etc. The system that you're studying, what is the emphasis there? Is it mostly hand techniques or mostly?
The system that I really like studying mostly is with hand techniques, because mostly I like to work more with my hands to try to make sure the opponent does not get hurt. Mostly, if I use my legs, I just really hurt them, and I don't really want that. So, and with the style that most black belts use, they always go with the foot technique.
Gotcha. What got you into martial arts? Was it like a health? Because some people, they just they want something to stay healthy or build themselves up. Some people, it's self-defense, and like you say, some people they want to compete, do either tournaments or even like mixed martial arts. What really got you into it?
What really got me into it is that, well, at a young age, I was actually really an angry kid. I get into fights a lot, but then I was like, I gotta try to change my attitude, and then I was like, Mom, I want to do martial arts just to try and change myself from it. And as soon as I got here, I was like, this would be the best time for me to change, and it really helped me a lot.
I can understand, yeah. When I first started practicing, my real first exposure to it was probably junior high, as far as really, as far as working with anybody. I mean, I checked out books and looked at books and stuff like that, and it was kind of the same thing. When I started out, it was like, well, I want to be, strong, I want to be tough, I want to show people, that I can do something, and then along the way, at least for me, it was like, wow, this is really good for building a person up, making them healthy, and so, that's pretty much been my focus, has been forms, or I believe they call it kata in Taekwondo.
No, we call it forms.
Oh, they do? What is the difference between, forms and kata?
Well, with kata and judo, the attacker pretty much it's also the same in Taekwondo, the attacker Tori, actually, the defender, do the moves, and then they have to try to make sure that they are crisp. But with Taekwondo, we actually try to make sure that we don't hurt them as much as when we throw them or sweep them or kick them.
Gotcha. Yeah, because you hear the words thrown around, and it was my impression that kata and forms were synonymous, but that's good to know the distinction, because I think a lot of people probably think the same thing, because a lot of people tend to use it kind of synonymously,
Yes.
forms. So it's really good. And again, in Taekwondo and any other style, there's a salute. Would you demonstrate
Yes.
how you greet an opponent or an instructor?
As we greet, it's just the same as judo, so we just have our hands by our side, but this time we actually look straight down. We don't ever look up at our opponent, because if we do, it shows signs of distrust. But with Korean art, we try to make sure that we try to trust our opponent.
Welcome back. Once again, I'm Jason Gearing. This is Kenneth Grant. We're going to do a sort of a light exhibition just to kind of show, the differences, the similarities, the emphasis. All right, and here we go. Oh.
I know you're ready.
I always try to wait for the other person, but I get the feeling that Taekwondo is very similar. You wait for that other
Pretty
person
much,
to.
right.
Alright. Suppose I will. I honestly expected this to be pretty one-sided, so
Yeah.
I figured you'd probably just, because like I say, I mean, I do demonstrations for like friends and stuff, and they tell me all the time that,
One-sided.
well, like, they make me, they kind of build me up a little bit in my head, and then I'm like, but I always kind of assume that the other person, you never underestimate your opponent.
Right.
And so, thank you very much. Once again, Jason Gearing, Kenneth Grant, I survived. Did not expect that. This is sort of a final segment in the video. What we're going to do is we're going to do some basic stances and postures and strikes and kicks in Chinese Wushu, an external style, Northern Shaolin Tong Tui, and the system of Taekwondo that Kenneth instructs. And if you'd like, I'll let you start. Just, how many basic, stances are there for the moves? Are there a basic set that everything stems from?
There is a basic. There are many basics. Mostly we go with front stance, back stance, horseback stance. Go with walking stance.
Gotcha. Could you demonstrate those?
Yes.
What kind of
So with walking stance, like if you're doing a down box, just here, all toes point ahead, front leg is bent, back leg is straight. Then with back stance, you just move it back here. Both legs are bent. And then the front toes are pointing that way, back toes that way. Now with horseback stance, all of them are just here. Then it's just execution whenever something happens.
Very.
Get down low.
Actually, that's extraordinary similarity. In Tong Tui, you have 5 basic stances that the movements stem from. You have horse stance, which is in southern styles and internal styles, it's a lot higher. But in northern styles, it's a very low horse stance. And once again, your toes are pointed just kind of slightly off. It's a very low stand. It's very good for security. Like I have a lot of people just to demonstrate the security of it. I've had people come and try to, sweep the knee or whatever. And it's amazing just because the muscles, it's kind of the perfect point for them. They're strong, they're flexed, they're contracted, but they're not tense.
Right.
To where you're gonna have something break or snap, if you move or whatever. That, like I say, there's horse stance, and then forward bow, ironically, where the toes, this front foot is pointed, outward, toward the opponent. This back foot is behind you, and the toes point off just slightly. And I mean, this has been, depending on how low you go in the stance, pretty close to a 90 degree, or in the internal style, a little higher. And this leg, it's not bent, it's, but it's you have some movement in it.
Right.
And the emphasis on the weight distribution is mostly on the back foot. Then, let's see, there's empty stance, and you have kind of your back foot, your body, and your head are kind of all in the same plane of movement. And then you have the weight is on actually the front of the foot, and you have one hand in front of your navel and your center line, and the other one out over the other foot. And the last one is called scissor stance. This back foot, you're on the front of your foot, kind of like an empty stance, and then you're flat on this foot, and you have your hands out in front of you, and there's a lower one where you go and it's dragon stance, where the knee is all the way bent, and once again that heel is kind of up, and your hand is out in front of you, and everything stems from that, you know, and it's the same kind of thing. The nice thing about that sturdy horse stance is it's pretty stable, and I mean you could turn, you know, like and defend from the front if somebody's coming at you. And even though it's a fairly low stance, it's pretty easy, you know, to move. And that's what's the nice thing. A lot of people feel that there's not a lot of functionality with low stances because they feel like it's got to be, you know, harder to move because you're so low. But
it's not really that hard because you got more balance if you're a little bit lower.
Exactly. And you don't need to move as much because, exactly, you have that balance and stability. So, I mean, you're pretty ready to be able to defend where you are.
Right.
That is the big advantage of it that a lot of people don't get. Could you show us a basic, like in Tom Tweed, there's what they call a thrust punch, where you start out in horse stance, and then as you turn into bow, you just punch out. That's very similar, or I mean very simple. Could you just demonstrate a very basic strike for us?
So with pretty much with back stance, we actually go here, and then usually we actually have a lot of people turn here into another horseback, into another back stance. Now with front stance, if you're here in the down block, all you have to do is just step up, punch. Now with horseback stance, it's very similar. You're just there. If you go, just try to get it out.
What I think is also interesting, because watching you do it, I'm noticing the similarities between the two styles. Like there's a lot, and one thing I do notice is there's a lot more like, you know, like I say with Shaolin, mostly the big movement is just from one stance to another because the whole emphasis is low, well-rooted stances so that you can defend where you are. But I noticed that like with your transitions, you know, there's a lot of like, and granted there's advantage to it too because if you're in the one stance, you know, and they go to strike and you turn into your other one, well, you know, it helps with evasion, which I think I'm noticing that's a difference, but I would say a very strong advantage for the style. Well, once again, thank you very much for your time. Right, Jason Gearing, Bradley Creek Wushu, Kenneth Grant with AJF down here at 1030 North Main. Check it out.